probably include and all of you adults out there, because it seems like almost every week I hear from a different adult that they've been watching, which is great. We are grateful that lots of people are watching. Sometimes it just catches me a little off guard. But good morning, yeah, thanks, Peter. We had revival meetings this last week, so a few late nights in a row. Hopefully you are rested up, recovered, but most importantly, hopefully you're spiritually recharged after that. Hopefully it was spiritually beneficial for you. Well, Peter had the opportunity this last week to meet a few of you boys and girls. I hope you got advantage of that and got to get some pictures with Peter. That was kind of fun for us. So, boys and girls, we are in the story of Joseph, probably my favorite Bible character, although I have another favorite Bible story, but Joseph's probably my favorite Bible character. So we just started the story last Sunday, and we talked about how he was the favorite. And we left off, though, Peter, you're my favorite panda, I can give you that. Oh, Peter. So Peter's going to distract me tonight, this morning, boys and girls. I'm already distracted. So, Joseph, though, Peter, you got to help me stay focused, not distracted. Joseph, he had gone from being the favorite in his father's house to all these things going well in life to we ended off with his brothers had just sold him into slavery. He went from being completely free, having all the freedom that he wanted, being blessed by his father, to being a slave. He went from the top to the bottom, boys and girls. He couldn't make decisions for himself. He couldn't get up when he wanted to. He couldn't eat what he wanted to. He was sold into slavery. Well, they traveled to Egypt, where they sold him to a man named Potiphar. And we are in Genesis chapter 39 is where the story takes place this morning. It says, and Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him in the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And it goes on to tell us how Joseph went to work in Potiphar's house. Potiphar was a very important man in Egypt. Well, it seemed like whatever Joseph did prospered. Whatever he worked at, he worked hard at. And things went well for him, and things kept going well. And Potiphar looks out over his servants, and he notices, he's like, hey, this guy, everything he touches prospers. Any job I give him gets done well, and I make money off of it, and things go well. Potiphar's not dumb. He's like, I'm going to put him in charge. I want him over everything. So Joseph does well as a slave, and Potiphar sees that, and he says, I want you to be over everything in my household. I want you to make sure that everything runs well. And he was, we would say, the chiefest servant or the highest servant in Potiphar's house. Well, Potiphar's wife saw Joseph and thought, he's a good-looking young man, and she wanted Joseph to do some things that weren't right. And so she tempted Joseph. She tried to encourage him to do bad things. And what do you think, boys and girls? Think Joseph's going to choose to do what's wrong or choose to do what's right? What do you think, Peter? Right or wrong? Right. Joseph's going to choose to do what's right. Well, Joseph comes into the house one day while Potiphar's gone, and he's talking to Potiphar's wife here, and they're talking back and forth, and she wants Joseph to do something wrong. Joseph says, no way, and he goes to run away, but Potiphar's wife grabbed his coat, his jacket, and she held on to it, and Joseph just slips it off. He's like, I'm getting out of here. I'm not staying. I'm not worried about my coat. And he leaves his coat behind. Well, Potiphar's wife holds on to that coat, and she's like, she has a plan of what she's going to do with that coat. Well, Joseph goes about his business, does what Potiphar has asked him, and Potiphar comes home. When he comes home, Potiphar's wife pulls out that jacket, that coat, and she's like, hey, this is what Joseph did. Joseph tried to, and she tells a bunch of lies about Joseph. She says that Joseph tried to harm her and do different things, and none of that was true, but who's Potiphar going to believe, a servant or his wife? He believes the wife, and then what ends up happening is Potiphar has Joseph thrown in jail. So Joseph starts off his life as his dad's favorite. Life goes well. He gets sold into slavery. He is the lowest of servants. He works his way up to become the chiefest servant, still not the same as being free, but life is getting better, to then be thrown in prison. Joseph, it's up and down for him, and things are hard, and he's away from his family. He's with people who speak a different language. Things are hard for him. Well, Joseph is in prison, and the prison guard notices that whatever Joseph does is right. Whatever Joseph works on gets done well. It prospers. It does well. It succeeds. And the head prison guard goes, hey, you can be in head of the prisoners. You be in charge of the prisoners. So again, Joseph finds himself to have prospered and for people to notice and to be made in charge again. Well, Joseph's still in prison though, boys and girls. While he has some authority, he's still in prison. Okay, and it's not comfy cozy. Okay, he doesn't have all the special nice things. And he's in prison, and two men get thrown in prison with him. Two men who worked for the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh is the head of Pharaoh's the head of Egypt. Okay, so you kind of think of the king or a president, a little bit different, but the Pharaoh. So he had a butler and a baker who worked for him, and Pharaoh threw them both in prison. Well, they're sleeping, and when they're sleeping, they have dreams, and these dreams, they confuse them, and they're confused by these dreams, and they're just unsure of them. I don't know if you boys and girls have ever had a realistic dream, but sometimes you wake up and you wonder if it was real or not real. Those can be scary, but they wake up and they're like, oh, that was weird. And Joseph sees him in the morning and he's like, what's wrong with you guys? You look sad. You look upset. What's wrong with you? And they said, well, we had these dreams and it's just bothering us. And the baker kind of sits back, but the butler, he's open. He's willing to share. And Joseph explains that God's able to interpret dreams. Maybe God would give him the wisdom to interpret. And so the butler starts to tell about his dream. He goes, well, I was in my dream. He goes, and this vine grew out and these beautiful grapes grew off the vine. He's like, and then off of these grapes, he goes, I was holding the Pharaoh's cup. And when I saw these beautiful grapes, which there were 3 clusters of grapes, because when I saw those grapes, I squeezed them into the cup. And he explains this dream to Joseph. And Joseph's listening, and Joseph prays and asks God. He says, what does this dream mean? I'm going to stop here a second and point out, boys and girls, he went from, I keep talking about the differences in his life, but we never read that Joseph doubted God. We never read that Joseph stopped trusting God. What we do read is that Joseph goes back to God. Joseph goes and prays to God. When Joseph needed wisdom, he didn't go to the people around him. Joseph went to God when he needed wisdom. So even when life was good and when life was bad, Joseph constantly went to God. He never lost trust or faith in God. I don't know what you're going through, boys and girls, but God's in control. And you can still pray to him regardless of how hard or tough your situation is. Well, Joseph prays and he finds out. God gives him wisdom. God tells him what that dream means. This is the 3 clusters represent 3 days. In 3 days, you will be restored back to your job. Because before, the butler had been the one to kind of serve the Pharaoh his food, and he says you're going to serve him the drink again. You're going to be able to give him the cup again. You're going to be able to have your job back. Well, the butler's like, this is great news. This is exciting. I'm getting my job back. Only 3 more days in prison. Baker's sitting back there going, that was good news. He found out the answer to the dream. I want to know my answer. And you know what? I skipped ahead. I always get so excited and I miss parts. We got to back up just a little bit. So when Joseph tells the butler that dream, he tells the butler something. He says, when you get restored to your job, when you get your job back, remember me, remember me. Tell the Pharaoh about me. Find justice for me. Please remember me. And the butler's like, oh, I'll remember, because he just got this great news. It's exciting. He tells him he'll remember. Okay, so that's the little part I left out. Now back to the baker, who's sitting there going, hey, the butler just got good news. I want good news. And he starts to tell his dream. He says, well, I was in my dream too, and I had 3 baskets of bread on my head. And in the top bread were all sorts of baked goods, all sorts of breads and things from a bakery. It was full of breads. He goes, and I was carrying them, and then these birds came along, and the birds started to eat the bread out of the basket. Joseph prays, asks God for wisdom, and he's not too excited to tell the baker the news that he has. What it was is that in 3 days, the baker was going to be hanged by the Pharaoh. Pharaoh was going to take him out of prison in 3 days, but it wasn't to restore his job, because he was going to lose his life. He was going to hang him. And the birds coming to eat the bread was a symbol of the birds were going to come and eat the baker's body. So, not good news for the baker. Well, 3 days pass by, and it's Pharaoh's birthday. When I was reading this, my mind went to next month is my birthday, just a heads up. End of the month, though. So, April 26th, in case you're wondering, it's no secret. And it's a school day, boys and girls, better be on top of that. I'm just kidding. So, Pharaoh's birthday is 3 days later. So, Pharaoh, the 3 days come, the butler gets restored to his job. It's great. He's excited. He's there for the big party for Pharaoh's birthday. He's back serving Pharaoh. And the baker, as was said, gets hung on a tree, and the birds come and eat him. So what about Joseph, right? Surely the butler's going to remember. This guy who just told him he's going to get out of prison, surely you don't forget that guy. Well, the butler was so excited about everything good that was happening to him that he forgot. He forgot all about Joseph. And Joseph was still in prison. Boys and girls, Joseph still did what was right. Joseph still trusted God. Joseph still prayed to God. But it wasn't time yet for Joseph to leave the prison. Boys and girls, sometimes we go through trials that are short. We have to take a math test and it doesn't go well, but then it's over. But sometimes we lose a loved one. Sometimes someone in our family is sick. Sometimes our trial's longer. But we can trust God in the short trials. We can trust God in the long trials. We can trust God in the good times. If you have something that you're struggling with, boys and girls, make sure you run to God with it. Make sure you always pray. Just like Joseph did. Prayed in prison, prayed when he was with Potiphar, and he followed God. I hope you boys and girls will spend some time telling God about your trials and thanking him for all that he does for you.